Hi, I'm Danessa Myricks.
And I'm James Vincent.
And we're here to answer all of the most frequently asked foundation questions.
We love to talk about foundation.
So let's get started.
All right.
All right. Question number 1. How to apply for optimum coverage over texture like acne, scarring, etc. I'll start.
All right. Ladies first.
Well, for me, I love the stippling motion. I think it's really great to build coverage slowly. So whether you're using a spun or a brush, I think tapping will build up the product until you reach the desired level. And then there's also the option of, if you're just covering a few scars or a couple of pimples, you can do a sheer coverage all over, maybe buffing it in with a brush all over the face, and then just spot conceal.
Well, one of my favorite things about the LimeLife foundation is that the full coverage allows you to really customize it. You need to remember when you're trying to cover texture like scars or acne, makeup isn't going to hide the texture. But what you can do with your full coverage is shear it out, as Danessa suggested. I like to then go in with a little bit of setting spray on my favorite sponge and press it into place to build it up.
You're such a show off.
Thank you.
Love that one.
How does perfect foundation work with really oily skin?
That's such an interesting question, and I think I'm going to piggyback off what you said. That the foundation is really designed for all skin types. It's really about how you customize and design in your prep process and in your finishing.
Yeah.
So if you have very oily skin, maybe using less oil in the beginning in your prep step, and to set and allow it to last all day or control the oil all day, the setting sprays are great for that, or even rolling the powder into the foundation is a good tip.
I love that. One of the other things that I like to remember when I'm working with oily skin is it is all about your prep. And I'm a huge fan of layering your prep slowly. This is where your serums and your moisturizers and your oils really need to be selected for you, ideally. It isn't a one-stop shop when it comes to prepping the skin.
Oh, one size fit all.
No. And then what I love to do is I mix a little bit of my favorite moisturizer into the perfect foundation, creating kind of a custom tinted moisturizer. And what that will do is help to control the oil. Remember, oil balances oil, and you need that on your skin, even if you're very oily.
I think that's the one thing that most people forget, right? They make the assumption that adding oil means moisture is oil, and it's actually two very different things. You're good at this.
Thanks.
Okay, next question. How to smooth out large pores with foundation?
For me, pores are one of those things that makeup wearers get so obsessed with. And it really just comes down to choosing a foundation product that has a beautiful texture. With the perfect foundation, it is developed and designed to look like skin. So even just in choosing your foundation, you've done half the work. The next thing that I like to do is choose the right tool. If you want a sheer or light coverage, work with a brush. It's gonna give you a lot of control, and there are so many options in the LimeLife line that allow you to really work with a brush that you feel comfortable with. If you want more coverage and you're concerned about pores, set a little bit of setting spray into your sponge, and that will allow you to really kind of press it in a way that it mimics the texture of the skin and it gets rid of those large pores.
First Base, the primer spray, is also fantastic for this because it's really designed to kind of smooth out the skin and reduce the appearance of pores. So even priming and prepping properly at the start.
I love your alliteration.
Priming and prepping.
Properly. With perfect foundation.
I love it. All right, let's get into the next question.
All right.
What is the finish of perfect foundation? I like to say it's a natural finish. I don't know if you agree, but it does look like skin, right?
I always agree with you.
Good answer.
I've learned my lesson.
How to cover darker spots on the face. You want to take that one?
Sure. One of the things that is really impressive for me about the perfect foundation is the way that it is beautifully color balanced. When you're looking at darker spots, you're probably looking at a concentration of different colors that are distracting from the complexion. And so what I like to do is go in with something that is a little bit more orange. That orange is going to get rid of that blue discoloration that you're seeing, and then you can go right over with your favorite foundation shade, and that bit of color correction is going to make the skin look flawless.
You know, another interesting tip for women of color, sometimes just choosing a foundation that has a little bit more orange can do the job. And sometimes that may feel counterintuitive, but it's the same thing. If you don't want to correct with something called a corrector, your foundation can be a corrector as well.
And this is where you can get creative. For light to medium skin tones, working with something peach. For medium to deeper, darker tones, go with something with a bit of a bright orange feel to it, and mix that perfect foundation in with your favorite moisturizer, and you are good to go because you'll get a sheer color corrector that looks effortless.
I love that. Moving right along, how do you know if you need to mix foundation shades? I guess this is a pretty big question.
This is the big, okay, I'm gonna let you.
Well, I'll start it off.
I'll let you do the heavy lifting.
Okay, so what I will say, and maybe I'll speak to women of color especially, or anyone that has hyperpigmentation or finds multiple shades throughout their face and their body. Sometimes it's not about mixing, sometimes it's about using more than one. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but even if you take my body and face as an example, the inside of my chest really mimics what happens in the inside of my face. But if you look at my knuckles really mimic what happens along the edges of my face and down the sides of my neck. So if I were to take a foundation shade that matched my chest and put it all over, it'll look great here, but along the edges, it might look really ashy. And vice versa, if I just choose the tone that's predominantly around the perimeter of my face and put that towards the center, it's gonna look too dark. So for me, the best option is to use two. The lighter shade in the lighter portions, which will align with what's happening in my chest, and then the slightly deeper shade around the perimeter. So sometimes it's about just more than one.
For me, to be honest, I think it is always about more than one. Let me tell you the truth, my beauty guides. You have been lied to your entire life. You are never gonna find one foundation shade that works for you all the time. Your skin, from the lightest to the darkest, deepest tone, is going to have different tonalities going on. And what Danessa is saying really applies to everyone. You're going to have different shades coming through on the neck and the deck. You're gonna have different sun hitting you on the forehead or the chin. And so what you really need to do is get used to always looking for your undertone and then adjusting your everyday shade, lighter or darker, depending on what season of the year it might be, how much sun you've been getting, or even how you want to shape and contour or highlight the face. If you start to think about complexion as a series of shades and that beautiful skin tone of yours as something that requires you to pay attention to it all the time, you won't get caught up in the idea that there's gonna be one perfect shade that is eluding you. Because as a professional makeup artist, I probably use 3 shades on most clients.
Me too. This is why I love you so much.
This is why I love you so much.
We're here.
I got my eye on you, Danessa Myricks.
Same.
All right, where were we?
Okay. Is priming and setting necessary? Well, I want to say yes and no.
Okay.
Because sometimes priming feels like this really big word that makes it seem scary and you have to find something called a primer. For me, priming just simply means getting your skin ready for the outcome, right? So for someone, priming might be just making sure that there's great hydration and an oil base, while for someone else, it's going to be like filling in pores and refining. So it can be a bit different, but yes, you definitely want to have your skin ready and prepared to receive foundation. And when it comes to setting, I mean, I know people who never use a powder because they like that fresh, dewy finish, or maybe they just set in strategic areas, like maybe just under the eye and around the nose. And you can go anywhere from setting with a powder all over, rolling it into the skin, or just kind of finishing off the face with a setting spray.
Little setting spray. I concur. For me, I think makeup is individual, and I think you have to really look and say, what is my comfort level and how much product do I want to put on right now? Priming the skin means preparing it, and we have so many beautiful serums and oils and moisturizers that will prime the skin if you don't want to use a product called a primer.
Exactly.
The priming process can be effortless. It really just comes down to how you're caring for your skin every day. Now with setting spray, I am gonna say I always always use a setting spray. As a New York-based makeup artist who works all over the world, I never know what climate I'm walking into. And so with our setting sprays, you have so many ways to make sure that you don't have to think about your makeup all day. Let's be honest, everybody's life is too busy now to worry about touching up all day.
I totally
and that
agree.
setting spray is going to just make you feel more confident and comfortable that where you put your makeup in the morning, it's gonna be there when you go out at night.
That makes total sense.
Totally.
I concur.
I concur.
Okay.
All right.
Best way to apply foundation if trying to control oily skin. I think we touched on this a little bit. Anything else you wanna add to that?
One of my favorite tricks is I really am, again, all about that skin prep. With oily skin, people get really oil phobic and they don't want to put on products that feel like oil. One Drop Wonder is one of my favorite miracle serums in the world.
Delicious,
because you can really massage that into your skin very gently, let it set and absorb. And what that's going to do is help to start controlling the sebaceous glands as they start to over secrete. I'm giving you some real professional terms here. You like that? You've got to really step back and say, okay, well, where do I need to control that oil? And what most people find is it really does happen through the T-zones. So that little bit of One Drop Wonder right on your fingers, massage it in gently, and then go in with your serums and your moisturizer. Now, my trick for oily skin, before foundation, with dry to normal skin, my process is serum, oil, moisturizer, then foundation. With oily skin, I like to go serum, moisturizer, and then oil. Because that little bit of oil at the end is going to stop that water that's in the moisturizer from evaporating, and your foundation is gonna glide on, and it's gonna look like your skin all day. And then you can go in, and if you do start to get a little bit of shine, touch it up with your powder, and you're good to go. But that oil is really gonna help balance that off. So I would say you've gotta look at the process. It isn't just a one quick fix, unfortunately.
You're so smart.
Thank you. No one's ever said that to me before.
You're hiding a really big brain under that.
Under this, that's why I put the safety pin in to keep my brain in place.
There, yes.
It's fashion.
I love it. Okay.
All right.
What is the difference between applying with a brush and a sponge? Well, I would say that when you apply with a sponge, if you are using a damp sponge, that's really going to give you a super sheer application. So if you want to do it light and easy and build up in light layers, a damp sponge is a way to go. Applying with a brush, it really just depends on the brush. If you're using a flat, more dense brush, that's gonna give you a fuller application or a fuller coverage. And if you're choosing a brush where the hairs are maybe longer or fluffier, and especially if you're using that circular motion, that's gonna give you a super sheer application. So it really just depends on not only the tool itself, but the kind of tool, the shape and size of the brush, or even the density of the sponge.
Exactly what I was going to say. You take the words right out of my mouth.
I peeked under your hat. Okay. How to avoid a dry and creasy application.
Ooh.
And this the next question kind of ties into it, how to prevent creasing under the eyes. I think it's all together, right? Just how we layer products. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in all the many ways you talked about layering foundation. I honestly think taking the time to blend is really important. You know, oftentimes we're kind of just putting on without putting it on, blend, and then put it on again. Especially for under the eyes, oftentimes the myth is that the more coverage that you put under the eye, or the more product, the smoother it will be, or the brighter it will be, and the less it will crease. And it's actually the opposite, right? I found that when there's creasing, less is more. Less is more. I also find that this comes down to how you're layering your product. Your skin is made up in layers. I tell my beauty guides all the time, get off of Instagram, go to a museum and look at the way that the masters painted skin. And you really, if you're concerned about creasing, if you're concerned about things moving around, build it slowly in layers. And my other favorite trick, even with my foundation brushes, my concealer brushes, I will take a little bit of our setting spray and spritz it right on that brush, put it right on my palette, and then tap it lightly into place.
allowing it time to set, and then you can build on top of it without any worry that you're gonna have that creasing happen throughout the day.
I think that's a great point, especially with something like a setting spray, because the assumption is that you can only add that at the very end, but you literally can layer that throughout the process. You know, the more layers.
The more layers. I am a lazy makeup artist. I do not want to touch that makeup up all day, so I want it set from go.
I love it.
And creasing around the eyes. You also need to use a product that's going to prevent that. And you know, if you've seen my Facebook Lives, I love Arise. And I will use it not only in the under eye area, but also anywhere where there might be fine lines and wrinkles. So I use it all around the lips. I use it right around the nose. Because these are the places that we know makeup will start to spread and makeup will start to crease. And what Arise does is it gives you a great surface to work on, and that will also aid into preventing creases. So not only are you setting it at the end, you're right from jump saying, okay, this product is gonna help keep everything exactly where I want it to be.
I love that. You're really big on skincare, and I learned so much of that from you.
And I'm obsessed with Arise. I would bathe in it if I could, because my skin is just getting old.
Make a t-shirt.
All right.
Arise. Okay. All right, how do I get a glowy complexion without looking too oily? I love this question.
You are the queen of glow.
You know,
I'm gonna let you take this one.
If I can just glow everyone up and down all day long, it would be my best day ever. So I would say getting a glowy complexion without looking too oily, well, you can use things that have no oil to create glow. I love first using dewy or radiance products underneath the foundation. I find that using it underneath the foundation allows it to seal onto the skin and kind of just play in the background without being too obtrusive. And you can layer on all your other products on top, your foundations and your powders. So set the skin as you naturally would, but that radiance is coming from within. It really looks like a lit from within type of appeal. And then also bronzers. You know, bronzers, especially bronzers that have a little bit of pearl, will still give you that radiant effect, and you're using powder. All you need is those little flecks of light to give that illusion of sheen. So I think a great bronzer can work as well.
I agree with you 100%.
Perfect. Okay, what is the difference between a professional foundation formula and what you would find at a drugstore? Okay, I know you've got this one.
Well, I am not, you know me, I'm just gonna tell it like it is. I think that the idea that you cannot find great makeup at a drugstore is problematic, because I think that there are wonderful products at great price points at a drugstore. But when we're talking about professional foundation formula, what we're looking at is all of the ingredients that go into that formula. We're looking at the integrity of the product, and most of all, we're looking at pigmentation. When we're talking about perfect foundation, we're looking at a product that has over 50% pigment. This formulation is a traditional professional Hollywood formula that, because of its pigment load and pigment level, allows you to manipulate it any way you need to. Share it out with your favorite moisturizer, use it as a concealer if you need to, or build it up to full coverage. What you're going to get with a professional formula is not only that beautiful finish, but that pigment load that allows endless possibility, and a finish that stays put because it is formulated for the intensity that we feel as professional makeup artists. But if we're honest, life is intense. So you have a professional foundation formula you can use every day that will give you exactly what you need, and you will look like a Hollywood starlet just sitting behind your desk at your Zoom.
I love it. I love it. So flexibility is key.
Flexibility, malleability, and high performance, I think, are the things that we look for in professional formulations. But for me, the other thing that separates the LimeLife formula is the pigment load.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Let's see, next question. What is the most common mistake you see people making when it comes to foundation application? Do we have time? No. I'm just kidding.
You know I'm not one to gossip, but
you know, I love you. No, honestly, I think one of the most common mistakes is wearing the wrong shade. But this kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, where sometimes people are looking for a needle in a haystack, and there's other ways to approach choosing a foundation. And one of them is sometimes it's more than one, and the other we talked about is sometimes you have to kind of mix to get your perfect shade.
Yeah. I think the other issue that I have sometimes with foundation, or the big question that a lot of my clients ask me, why does it start to look orange? If I've been wearing it too long, or why is it starting to look ashy? And I think it's because people are not working with their own undertone. Working with a darker foundation, working with a more orange foundation or more golden foundation is not gonna make you look more tan. You want to match your foundation to your actual complexion and then build in the points of interest and the depth and dimension in other ways. And so I think a lot of people try and skip those steps by going deeper to look like they've been on vacation.
Right.
And then you see them at the walking down the street and they have like that orange line on their collar. I don't like that at all.
I don't like that either. No, but I think what might be worse is when you forget the ear, the back of the ear or the neck.
Yeah.
Because it can look great from the front, but it can easily look like a mask from the side, not because this isn't a beautiful formula that's super natural, but simply because it just wasn't blended in all the areas. So I think taking a look at the neck, the ears, and just making sure that that tone flows through is also really important.
And I think remembering that full coverage does not mean heavy. Full coverage is about opacity.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much light am I allowing to kind of come through? I think sometimes people think if they just keep piling on their complexion, that it's gonna look flawless, but it kind of has the opposite effect.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
If you want more coverage, do I use more product? Wow, you're brilliant. This is why we're gonna get that hat.
Yeah.
It holds all the answers.
What am I thinking now?
You even see the future.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think we answered that one.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Is that the last question?
That's the last question.
Wow.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
You did it.
You did it. We did it.
We did it together.
Aww.